Welcoming to UGR News, and today I call shenanigans on police brutality. This is a topic that I don't like covering. I didn't want to cover. It's a very touchy and divisive topic, and there are a lot of nuances involved in the topic. And when you get into speaking about it, a lot of people feel a lot of different ways. So I'm going to start off by saying this very clearly. Anytime an officer shoots someone, there should be a full investigation, and the police should be looked at more harshly than anyone else when there's a police-involved shoot. There should be extra scrutiny involved in that because their job is supposed to be to protect and serve, or at least that's what the moniker used to. Now, I'm going to start this by giving some solutions that I believe would be very helpful in this situation. Because from my lifetime, what I've noticed is that there are two types of people that go into law enforcement. There are people who genuinely want to make a difference and genuinely want to help, and there are people who have what I like to call the small man's complex. People who may have been bullied or pushed around when they were young, and they want some sense of control in their life, and some of those people become police officers too. This is my personal experience. This is what I've noticed. This is not true for everyone, but I would say a majority probably fall in that area. 80, 90, 95% fall in that area. What we need to do is we need to evaluate these officers. These officers need support. 95 to 98% of police officers go through their entire police careers without firing their weapon. So firing your weapon is a traumatic experience in and of itself. The paperwork and the articles that I've read said that police officers need at least 3,000 rounds of training per month to maintain sharpness and the reflex recall that they need to accurately fire. Most police officers only get between 300 and 500 hours. Police officers have a very high stress job. The only time we talk about police is when someone is killed and a police officer has done something terrible or horrible. But there are good police officers out there. I went to school in Ohio and I live in Virginia. And on my first trip going back to Virginia from Ohio, riding with a friend of mine, his gas gauge was broken. And I didn't know this before the trip. We got stuck on the top of a mountain in West Virginia. I mean, a dark mountain, no lights, no nothing. In the middle of the road, two black guys with dreads and one 6'4", 300-pound white guy. I stood in the road, I waved someone down. It was an old lady with what looked like her grandkids, and I asked her to please call for assistance. About 10 or 15 minutes later, an officer shows up and pushes us down to the bottom. He uses his police card to fill up our tank and let us go on our way. We all have our own experience. These are the types of experiences that I've had. Police officers need psychological evaluations. These evaluations need to come quarterly, once every 3 months. And these evaluations need to get into the actions that they see on an everyday basis, because police officers see things that I couldn't imagine, from child abuse, rape, to all types of violence that they come on the scene and they see. They're probably shaped by their experiences. I say all of that to say I am not making an excuse for any police officer that has killed anyone in the line of duty. All right, I want to make that perfectly clear. What I'm talking about are actual solutions, things that can actually work to help so that we can work together. Another way to go about it is not only having more black police officers, but having more black police officers from the area where they're police, people that know the people in the area. Small city that I live in, the police force here knows everyone. You know, there was a famous episode of Cops where one of the cops from Petersburg sees a guy and he's like, "Jerome, what you doing? I'm gonna tell your mama I was running." And the guy stops and turns around and says to the cop, "I'm sorry." There are more instances like this with police than there are these shootings. So if we want to get to the root cause of this, we need to find out what type of police officers we're dealing with. Are we dealing with people who are out here trying to help, or are we dealing with people out here who want to exert power over people? Because there are officers like that. I saw a video the other day that really disturbed me. Two black officers just going to town on a young guy in a convenience store for what seemed like no reason. And these things do happen. And nothing will take away from the hurt and the pain of the families that lose their children. But instead of us sitting here demonized and pointing fingers at each other and talking about taking police away, if you're going to take police away, how are you going to take guns away? If you take guns away, how are people going to protect themselves? See, you want to take away police and you want to take away guns from areas where there's high crime. What do you think is going to happen? There's going to be an increase in crime. So this is about safety. We need to put more training in the hands of citizens. We need to also have psychological evaluations for police officers, regular routine evaluations for police officers, so that we know who there is out there. And there needs to be incentives for police officers who see something and say something about their fellow officers. No more of this thin blue line nonsense. Officers who tell on other officers who are abusing their power should be rewarded and should be incentivized. There shouldn't be all of this negativity when an officer comes up and speaks up. These are the issues that we're having. And this needs to happen on a local level. We need to locally know our police. We need to go in there and have conversations with our police so that we know who the people are who are policing us. So that when these things happen, we have an understanding and a baseline of who that person. That's my thoughts on it. That's how I feel about it. It's a topic that I really didn't want to get into, but I felt like I had to, because every time a shooting comes, there are a multitude of things that come out of it. And one of those things is the anger and the hurt of the years of tyranny that black people have been subject to. You know, the way that we feel like a knee has been put on our neck collective. That's why people have a visceral reaction when these things happen. That's why there are violent outbreaks, because we feel as though we're not being heard and we're not being understood and we're not being listened to. And when that happens, people will bubble up and boil and explode. The way to avoid that is to give these police officers mandatory psychological tests, mandatory psychological screen, that they have to have these every 3 months to make sure that these officers who are dealing with these very hard and real issues understand the weight of what's going on and have someone to talk to get that weight up off their shoulders. Most cops don't talk to their family about what they go through on a daily basis. It's hard. I get it. But if we're going to get this fixed, we need to come together, and we need to come together with solutions, not more infighting and negativity. That's my thoughts on the situation. Running a little long today, but that's how I feel. I had to get it out there, and I'm your boy, Cecil Khalid. Again, you can catch me on Twitter. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And as for me, I think I'm going to go underground and work on my master plan.